If we can find our seats, we're about to begin. Again, if we can find our seats. On behalf of Sinai Temple and the clergy and the Federation of Greater Los Angeles, we welcome you to this evening of solidarity where we join together as one. On Tuesday, some of you were with me, 300,000. 300,000 of us stood on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Jews and Christians and Muslims. But I want to put that number into perspective. 300,000. 300,000 is the same number of those serving in the Israeli Defense Forces at this moment. Brothers and sisters, parents and friends who have not been home for over a month because they are protecting the land of Israel, the people of Israel, and are allowing us to gather here in Los Angeles tonight. And when you add those two numbers together, you get 600,000. 600,000 is the number of Israelites that were in the wilderness on the way from Egypt and slavery, on their way to the Promised Land. And we are told by our tradition that when we have a gathering of 600,000 people, you have to say a blessing. The blessing is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam chacham harazim. Blessed are you, God, who knows secrets. The rabbis ask, why this blessing at this time? And the answer the rabbis give, because God sees a whole people whose minds are unlike each other, whose faces do not look like each other. But God knows what is in each one of their hearts. And so what we learn from what we have done this past Tuesday, 300,000, connected with those 300,000 in the land of Israel, is that a crowd can be a faceless mass of people. But each person tonight brings their story to make up this crowd. Some of us are Jewish, and some of us are not. Some of us are American, some of us are Israeli, some of us come from all around the world. But all of us come here this evening. Chacham harazim. All of us come here together to reveal ourselves to each other, to stand with the hostages held in Gaza, to stand in solidarity with the state of Israel and the people of Israel, and most importantly on this sacred evening, to stand with each other. Am Yisrael Chai. We begin this evening as we rise and we welcome two choirs from Los Angeles from the Milken Community School. And Shalhevet for the national anthems of the United States of America and the State of Israel.
Twilight Please be seated. It's always been our dream at Sinai Temple to hold on the Sunday before Thanksgiving an interfaith gathering of gratitude. But we could have never imagined gathering for something like this, never thinking that something like this would be needed. Tonight, we certainly join in gratitude, but solemn gratitude, showing thanks to our elected officials who are here this evening, to our interfaith allies, to this Los Angeles interfaith gathering who has said, both in words and with your feet, we will not tire. We will not give up. But we choose to stand together to let the families of the hostages who were brutally kidnapped and tortured by Hamas on October 7th, your story is our story. An interwoven narrative, for we are one people with one heart. Tonight's gathering was created with two goals in mind: to bear witness to the stories of the families of hostages that we will hear this evening, and to tell our brothers and sisters in Eretz Israel, we will not forget. You are not alone. And to show our deep appreciation to those who stand with the Jewish community during this time of rising hatred and anti-Semitism. A special thank you to our elected officials who are here this evening. Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo, Assemblymember Jesse Gabriel, Assemblymember Luz Rivas, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, Councilmember Nitya Raman, Councilmember Bob Blumenfield, Senator Anthony Portantino, Beverly Hills Councilmember Sharona Nazarian. We welcome and thank staff representing the offices of Congressman Brad Sherman, Councilmember John Lee, Councilwoman Tracy Park, Councilwoman Katie Young-Yaroslavsky, Supervisor Holly Mitchell, Senator Henry Stern. And as we will hear from him soon, thank you to Consul General of Israel to the Pacific Southwest, Israel Bachar. And a special thank you to our interfaith allies that are present tonight. Specifically, thank you to Pastor John Paul Foster of Faithful Central Bible Church and Reverend Johnny Moore, President of the Congress of Christian Leaders, both of whom will be speaking this evening. And finally, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts to our partners, to the Los Angeles Jewish Federation, specifically, especially Joanna Mendelson and Zeb Hurwitz. And thank you to our entire Sinai Temple staff for working so hard to put this evening together. A special thank you to our Sinai Temple president, Anna Tenenblatt. We hope you saw as you walked in, since October 7th, we decided here at Sinai Temple to rope off with blue ribbon in solidarity with Israel 240 seats representing the 240 hostages who are in Gaza. If you have a chance throughout the evening or after the evening to go ahead and take a look, we have the names of the hostages and their ages, which shows that every day we are in this synagogue, every day we're in this sanctuary. We sit and stand and pray together as one. And so yes, this has become an interfaith gathering of gratitude, but tonight in solidarity with Israel. Dear God, we give thanks to you and we ask you to give us the ability to continue to stand together with our brethren in the Holy Land, even from thousands of miles away. Dear God, hear our prayer. May the hostages be safely returned. May peace come in our time. And let us say, Amen. It's now my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Noah Farkas, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles.
Good evening, everyone. I want to give a special, and I think we need to give a special thank you to Rabbi Sherman and Rabbi Guzik for really putting this together tonight. I'm one of those people who can say, I knew you when, and I'm so honored to be here on the Bima with you and to see how far you've come, and can't wait to see how far we go together. I was thinking about what to say tonight, and something really sort of profound came to my thoughts just walking over here from my car, because I refused to park in the parking structure, because we know how hard it is to get out of the Sinai parking structure. It's been a few weeks, and many of us have spent the last several weeks, for lack of a better term, sprinting, running from one thing to another, raising unprecedented amounts of money. The Federation here in Los Angeles has raised over $31 million in 6 weeks. And we're already putting that money to work on the ground. And our national partners, the Jewish Federations of North America, have raised over $660 million in 6 weeks. And before I move on, I just want to say thank you to Julie Platt for all of the hard work that you are doing. Carrying the national community is not easy, and I think you are in the perfect place at the perfect time. And to my partner, Orna Woolens, who will be speaking a little later, our chair, I want to thank you for all of your hard work in the last several weeks. And that feels extraordinary. It's an unprecedented amount of money. It's an unprecedented mobilization in our history. Perhaps in Sinai. I actually don't know. But with 300,000 of our Jewish friends and neighbors and allies to our community marching in Washington, to the hundreds of millions of dollars, to the thousands of volunteers, and to the hundreds of thousands of soldiers, we are more mobilized now than perhaps ever before in our history. Yet, at this point, it feels like a sprint that in many ways we can't keep doing. It's exhausting. And so I think about it from a biblical perspective. Forgive me, I am a rabbi, I'm standing on a bima. But it's important to know this, right? 40 days in the Torah, it's significant. I know there were more than 40 days, but we passed the 40-day mark this week. 40 days represents a large chunk of time. Transformative time. If you think about it, for example, how many days and nights was Noah in the ark with his family? 40 days and 40 nights. How many nights was Moses at the top of Mount Sinai receiving the first copy of the Ten Commandments? 40 nights. It goes on and on and on through the Torah. Even in the biblical passages, Elijah fasted for 40 nights. It's a symbol. And it's a human symbol, because after 40 days, something changes. The world keeps moving. Football games keep happening. Concerts keep happening. New news rises to the headlines. And all of us are caught in a world where we're trapped in October 7th, and yet also living in this world that feels like in some ways is moving beyond us. It feels unfair in some ways, especially unfair to the 240 hostages who celebrated birthdays, who gave birth, who died, who maybe went through surgery, maybe didn't, moved around. Life keeps happening, and yet it can't keep happening. Not for them, in many ways not for us. So for me, this moment is a watershed moment. It's a watershed moment because we have to find a way of weaving this scar tissue of October 7th into our daily lives. Because that's how we act. The rabbis were immaculate at this. We had 7 days of Shiva, 30 days of Shloshim. And now we move into a new period of mourning. We're not allowed to sit in our houses anymore. We're not allowed to say that the world has to stop because of our tragedy. We have to stand up, and we have to live our lives. We have to go to work. We have to be with our family. We have to find joy. We have to find simcha. We have to sing and we have to dance. But that doesn't mean we forget. Because October 7th happened and this war is still happening, and there are hundreds of thousands of Israelis who have dropped everything in their normal lives to fight on behalf of the Jewish people. And so we are in a turning point where this has to be part of our everyday. But for our own health and for the health of our families, it can't consume our total day. When the temple was destroyed, there's a famous midrash where a group of rabbis saw the ruins of the temple and they decided they weren't going to eat meat or drink wine anymore, and they weren't going to have parties anymore. And Rabbi Akiva comes and says, well, and he brings it to an absurd conclusion. Well, if you're not going to eat, drink, or wine, they also had incense, so you're not going to use incense. And they said, yes. And they said, well, you're not going to bake flour into bread, because they had showbread on the altar. And they said, well, wait a minute. And you're not going to sing, you're not going to remember. And so Rabbi Akiva comes to this conclusion that we have to normalize this tragedy in our lives. We have to weave it into our lives. We have to allow the world to keep turning. We have to return to work. We have to get to work. But we can never forget. The greatest thing we can do to help Israel in this moment is to celebrate Jewish life right here in Los Angeles. The greatest thing we can do to help the Jewish people is to give children and our students who might feel a little alone, a little bewildered, a little frightened, to give them a place to sing and to dance and to remember that Judaism is based on joy, and we have to give them that joy. That doesn't mean they don't have to see us afraid. They don't have to see us worried. They don't have to see us angry. That's all part of being normal. But this is a moment where we teach the resiliency of what it means to be a Jew. To keep fighting, to keep working, and to keep remembering that we are one people, united under God, indivisible, from now and forever. Am Yisrael Chai.
It's now our honor to call upon the Consul General of Israel to the Pacific Southwest, Yisrael Bachar.
Dear sisters and brothers, this week, like many of you, I was in Washington at a rally. For me, it was a life-changing experience. You could feel the energy in the air and hear the words of defiance and determination echoing across the mall. Let me assure you, the people of Israel see these rallies. They feel the love and support, and it strengthens them and protects them like a spiritual ceramic vest. That afternoon, I look out at an ocean of blue and white as far as the eye could see, all united, and saying to the world, the Jewish people are not going anywhere. The Jewish people are not afraid. The Jewish people are not alone. As I heard the cries of never again, listening to speaker after speaker, vowing anti-Semitism will not win, I realized this is a seminal moment, a turning point in Jewish history. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come through a cruel crucible, and we are coming out stronger, sharper, and united. On November 14th, I saw a new fighting Jew. A new fighting Jew not willing to accept anything less than zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. A new fighting Jew who understands there is no distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. A new fighting Jew who does not hesitate to demand from their peers, are you with us or are you against us? A new fighting Jew who will not let brutality and mass murder go unanswered, and understand that no, there are not two sides to the story. The new fighting Jew, redoubling their power to take on Hamas defenders on campus and calling out those women's groups, including UN Women, who have gone silent when it comes to condemning the barbaric sexual crimes against Jewish women. By being here tonight, you have enlisted into the Jewish battalion. You are the fighter of this era. Yes, Julie. Julie Platt is here. Fighting for your family, fighting for your children, and the generations to come. Distinctions do not exist. Secular, religious, right, left, Israeli, American Jew. We are one heart, one people, and we have only one future. And we will win, and allies by our side, like we have here tonight. On behalf of the State of Israel, to all of the elected officials, faith and community leaders, thank you for standing with us. Thank you for having the courage and clarity to speak out and say, not on my watch. We all knew this war going to be a grueling war. From the beginning of this war, Israel has done all that we could to protect the civilians of Gaza. Let me share with you one example. Shifa Hospital. Beneath the hospital, there is a Hamas command center, and yet we brought in incubators for newborns at the risk of our soldiers' life. We will win this war with our moral clarity intact. We are now in control of northern Gaza. We found weaponry in every hospital. We also find evidence that the hostages were held there as well. Trust me when I say, every waking moment, the hostages are the foremost in our hearts and in our minds. We will not relent. We will not stop until we get our hostages back to their families. To the families here tonight, to all the families of the hostages, we hear your cries. We feel your pain. And I'm here tonight to say, Israel shomat etchem. Am Israel itchem. Israel is with you. All of us are here tonight, are with you. And we will also not stop until we have eliminated every Hamas leader. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be served. This is not about territory. It is about terrorism, globalized, anti-Semitic terrorism. Terrorism against the Jewish state and the Jewish people. America and Israel understand one basic principle. There is no existence with terrorism. When the war began, I asked you to stay strong with us, and you have. I asked you to not let the world forget, and you haven't. I asked you to stay the course, and I know you will. Future generations will ask each one of us, where did you stand when Jew hatred erupted across the globe? All of us here tonight can say, I took action. I fought back against lies and hatred. I took up the challenge to influence and change history. I told those who would seek to destroy the Jewish people, not this time, not ever. I stood for the truth and justice. I stood for humanity. I stood with Israel. Am Israel Chai.
We invite the cantors of Southern California to please come to the bima and join us as they pray with us a prayer for the state of Israel. We ask that you direct your attention to either wall of the sanctuary, in which we will hear the story from Zohar Avigdori. Zohar's sister-in-law and niece were taken hostage on October 7th. They were visiting Kibbutz Be'eri and kidnapped from there that day. Please give your attention to his story.
My name is Zohar Avigdori. On October 7th, my sister-in-law Sharon and my 12-year-old niece Noam were kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri by Hamas. Until now, 40 days after that, we have no idea how are they held and what is the end to all this situation. We are in constant agony and pain, and we don't know when we could see our beloved ones again. In the name of all the families of the hostages and the kidnapped, I want to say thank you to all of you for the support. Now is the time to continue that support and demand with decision makers that they will make a deal right now to bring back safely all of the hostages, to pay any price so that Israel will prove that it can defend its citizens. Thank you so much. We count on your help and your ongoing support, and we're grateful for the support that you have given until now. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce everyone to Noah Zahavi, who represents the Hostage Forum in Israel here in Los Angeles, who will introduce one of our speakers this evening, Shani Kozi.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to start with a huge thank you from the bottom of our hearts to everyone here supporting the hostages' families. Really, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Consul, for all your help and support. and to anyone who helped us since October 7th, the day that our lives have changed forever. So I'm gonna be very quick, and I wanted to tell you that on October 7th, we had like this master plan on how to act, but the truth is that we woke up in the morning and just started working and thinking, what do these families need? So they need our support, they need hug, they need to be recognized, they need their stories to be heard. There are many of you that are approaching us since we established the LA arm of the Hostages and Missing Families Forum in LA and are asking what we can do. So there are two things that I would like to ask from you. First one is be very comfortable in taking pictures and videos and sharing the stories, because it's so important for you to share with your communities the stories that are real and happening right now. We would never imagine to arrive today 44 of this nightmare. This is completely insane that this situation is still going on. So please share and tell the stories. It's so important. Secondly, we want to ask you, we need resources, because bringing delegations here and doing everything we do take a lot of resources. We reached out to anyone we know in the industry, in Hollywood, media, press, PR companies, anyone who can help us engage powerful, impactful people to help us. So all these really cost a lot of money. So we need, like I said, we established the LA Forum on October 7th. I know that there are big organizations that are so established and well-known. Please reach out so we can see how we can work together for this important cause. And I want to honor and I want to say huge thank you again from the bottom of my heart to everyone here supporting the families. And I want to welcome our starshine, Ella Shani, who is going to share her story. Ella, you are so brave. I love you so much. This girl is being here for, I think, 2 weeks or almost, sharing her stories day after day, over and over and over and over again. She's so brave. I love you, and I support you, and you have my heart forever. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hi, my name is Ella Shani Kazin. I'm 14 years old. I live in Israel, in Kibbutz Be'eri, and I'm here to tell you my story. And I would like to start in the morning of October 7th, when we woke up at 6 a.m. from the horrors of shouts in Arabic and sounds of gunshots. I ran to the safe room with my mother, my little brother. He was already there with a friend of his who came to us the night before and stayed for a sleepover. We all got into the safe room, and then we started receiving messages about terrorists invading into the kibbutz. So we locked the door, we turned the lights off, and we stayed quiet. And at first, I texted my friends in our group chats on WhatsApp, just updating each other, asking how we're doing. And some of us said, like, they're knocking the door, but I'm not gonna open, and just giving each other the updates. And then at some point, I remember we started realizing that something is really happening when one kid texted in a group chat of all the teenagers in the kibbutz. There are 100 teenagers of the ages of between 13 to 17. And he said, they broke a wall in my house and walked in and they're shouting in Arabic. That's when they realized they're not just gonna knock at the doors and hope will open. They're gonna break in. And a few minutes later, more and more kids started begging for help, saying, it started with they just broke into the house, and it continued with they shot the parents and they set the house on fire, and it's just me, and somebody sent the IDF. And if anyone doesn't know, the IDF is the Israeli Defense Forces. And we were just begging each other to help us, and we didn't realize that we can't do anything. There were a few of our guides from the kibbutz who had a direct connection to the army, so they kept giving them the updates about what's going on with children, and it just wasn't enough, and kids were begging for their lives for hours. And then at 9 a.m., my uncle Nir Shani, he texted us in the family group chat, and he said, they broke into my house. They couldn't break into the safe room because I was holding the handle, but they set the house on fire. And I don't know how long I have left. And then I kept reading, the messages in the teenagers group chat, and then I see one from my cousin Amit. And Amit said, there are terrorists in my house. They broke in. Somebody sent someone. They're gonna get in, and they're breaking the whole neighborhood. They're shooting at my house and help us. And then he stopped answering my text, and so did both of his sisters and his mother. We lost connection with the four of them. And then at 2 p.m., my cousin Mika, she was at another kibbutz and she was safe, and she called us and she said, Grandma and Grandpa were injured, Grandma was shot, and I remember we called the hospital and asked someone to help them, and they said, and I quote her, they said, we can't do anything with it, stay strong and hang up. And I remember just the helplessness we felt at the moment, knowing we lost connection with four of our family members. My uncle's house was set on fire and he was still in it. My grandparents were shot and no one could do anything to help. And then I was rescued. Me, my mother, my little brother and his friend, we were rescued at 5:30 p.m. by a special unit. At first, I refused to open the door. I said, no way, terrorists already tried to break into our house about 5 times. What makes it different this time? What makes you think it's actually the IDF? But eventually, we opened the door, and it was the IDF. And at first, they took us out. The first thing I remember after they opened the door was the terrible smell in the air. It was everywhere, a smell of smoke mixed with blood and sweat and just the smell of war, if that makes sense. And then they took us out of our house and removed us to another house with 2 more families. We were in a safe room with 7 children. There were children from the ages of between 3 to 8, me and 4 adults. And we stayed there, and then at some point a few soldiers opened the door and said, prepare the kids, we're bringing some injured people to the living room to try and heal them. And we didn't really know what it meant until they said, okay, we gotta go, you guys are leaving. And we got out of the safe room, we walked past the living room, and then we paused for a moment because they had to make sure it's safe, and we just look at the floor and we see the floor was covered with blood and inner body parts. At first I didn't realize what I was looking at. I was just staring at the floor, not knowing what this pink liquid was. And I'm sorry for the graphic description, but at some point we realized that someone's inside was scattered there. So I covered my little brother's eyes. He just turned 9, so I covered his eyes. And we got out of the house. Then they shot at the house, and it's just like in the movies when you see the bullets whistling just next to you. So we ran back inside and then outside again, and then we started running, surrounded by the unit. Running out of the kibbutz, we ran for about 2 kilometers, which is, I think, a bit more than a mile, if I'm not wrong. And then as we look around, and we see, fire everywhere, like all of the houses of my friends and everyone were on fire. Now, let me just say, I don't know if you guys know what a kibbutz is like, but it's a community, and everyone knows each other. Like, think about your family, it's like that, or just bigger. They used to live 1,200 people in Kibbutz Be'eri, and everyone knew each other. I mean, if any tiny detail happened in someone's life, the whole kibbutz knew about it the next day. Like, everyone knew each other. We were literally one big family. And we see houses of our friends and everyone, and I know they're in there. And I remember the messages from the group chat before, like, I remember a girl saying, my mom's body is with me in the safe room, and the house is on fire, and then I see the house that is on fire, and I think, like, oh my God, she's still in there. But we had nothing to do but keep running. And I remember at some point it got difficult to look up at all the exploded cars and the fire and everything, so I looked down, and I can't say that it was better, because there were trails of blood, like, all over the floor, just marking us where to go. And, you look to the side of the sidewalk, and there were just bodies laying everywhere. And I remember noticing the difference between bodies of terrorists and bodies of our civilians and our soldiers. Because the terrorists, they looked just like sleeping people. I didn't even see the shooting wounds. But our bodies, you can tell just by looking at him, they were tortured, and they were killed by horrible ways. I remember seeing people, like, they covered, some of them had blankets on their faces. I guess one of the soldiers put them there because they didn't want the people who were rescued to see it, but some of their limbs were lopsided, and people were burned like just a pile of ash connected to a body. And we keep running and seeing all of this, and I remember also one guy who was shot and his house was on fire just looked out of his balcony and yelled, "Can I come with you too? Me and my family are here." And so they joined us, and we keep running. And then we got to the bus, we left the kibbutz, and we see so many people who got out alive. And I hugged one of my friends, and he started telling me which ones who already died. And I remember, like, one of my brother's friends, an 8-year-old kid, just ran to us with, like, there was blood all over his face, and his glasses were missing. He looked like a mess. And then he said to my brother, he didn't even cry, he just had a traumatized expression on his face, and he just said, my brother's name is Eyal. He said, "Eyal, listen, I saw how they killed my dad and sister." And his sister was 10 months old, and he was 8, and the mother was shot too. So the mother was taken to the hospital, and they left the bodies of the sister and the father in the safe room, and we find ourselves with an 8-year-old boy and his 3-year-old brother going on the bus without even knowing where they're going, without nothing on them. And that's when we started breaking down and realizing how difficult the situation was. And we see our soldiers crying and breaking down after leading bodies of their own friends to the helicopters. And I remember seeing one soldier literally sobbing and breaking down, and another soldier just came to him. He pulled him close and put his hand on the back of his neck and just said, "Man up, you're a soldier, you gotta keep fighting, you can't cry here, come on," and took him with them. And so I just want to say, I don't want anyone to say after that the IDF soldiers are inhumane or anything like that, because they're the most humane people who actually exist in Israel. And yeah, they deserve it. And then we went on the bus, and everyone were messed. Some people were shot when they were on the bus, and I remember seeing people like totally fine, because that's how Jews and Israelis are. I remember seeing people smiling and laughing, and their shirt, they had a bit of blood on their shirt, and I wondered why, but I didn't ask them. And then after we got off the bus, my mom was like, "You know that he was shot, right?" And I just look at him and remember how he kept telling jokes for the whole ride, and I'm just like, oh wow. And I remember the drive was horrible. We didn't even know where we were going. They didn't even know where to take us. Eventually they dropped us in Tel Aviv after kids puked and vomited on themselves while driving, and people were covered with their own vomit and their own pee and their own blood, and just everyone were in terrible condition, both mentally and physically. And then we arrived at Tel Aviv, and there were rocket alarms there too, and they just didn't stop. And then we started getting updates about my family, and we hear that Nir, my uncle, was rescued and taken to a hospital. He is alive. And then we talked to his ex-wife, who was with her two little girls, and Amit, my cousin. And we were told they were rescued and taken to the Dead Sea, but Amit was kidnapped. And just like Amit's dad said, Nir said, when I was told that Amit was kidnapped, what I heard was Amit is alive. And that's what we all heard, and we were so excited to know that Amit is alive. And then we heard that both my grandparents were also rescued after 9 hours of bleeding. My grandmother got hit by 2 bullets who got into her liver, and one of them hurt her elbow and her back. They were taken out of the house and taken to the hospital, and she went through an urgent surgery, and she survived. And she deserves it too. And she was interviewed just after she got out of surgery, and she didn't even say a word about what happened to herself. She just said, my grandson is kidnapped, just bring him back, and she didn't even care about what happened to her. And she was already walking and enjoying herself like a few days later, like nothing happened. And we started getting updates about people who were shot, who were killed that day, and who were kidnapped, and all of them were people we knew, like our families. And it was a really hard time. And then I remember my mom kept crying all the time because of these updates. She knew some people better than I did. And then I remember I heard her one time cry in the bathroom. So I went to see what happened. The door was open, and she just looked. I said, "Come on." I already knew what happened. I was like, "Who is it now?" And she just looked at me without saying anything. So I realized it was about Dad. And she didn't have even to say a word. I just took a few steps back and went like, "No, come on, you're lying. There's no way." And she told me, "Ella, I'm sorry, but your cousin was called to identify a body." And then I remember sitting on a chair because I felt like I was about to pass out. I was sitting on a chair and drinking some water. And then I just stared at the wall. There were a few guests in our house at the time. I was just staring at the wall, thinking to myself, maybe it was another body who couldn't be recognized by the face, who was just thrown into his house. Or I started telling myself a better story, like it wasn't him. But it was. And my cousins came to where I was staying just after they recognized him. And they said, "Ella, we're not going to lie to you because he was shot, but he was also burned. And we're not gonna lie to you because you're grown up and we think you deserve to know." And I buried him one day after that. And I remember waking up with the urge to throw up and cry and just scream, but just going to the funeral with a stomach ache. And he was, he was buried. And there are many things I never really got to say to him, like these legitimate things like "I love you" or just the word "dad," because the relationship was complicated. But I did love him, and we started getting close in the past few months. And then I remember, I can tell you, just a few hours before it all started, like it was 5 hours before everything started, I was sitting with one of my friends in an amusement park in the kibbutz, and I remember saying to her, my dad was 72, by the way, when he was murdered. So I told my friend, you know, he's like pretty old to be my dad, and not to be my dad, but he's already quite old, and I don't know how long he has. And it was 5 hours before everything started, which is crazy. And I remember saying to her, I want to start calling him Dad. And she said, I'm glad that you made this progress. I think it's really important. And you'll get a chance. I mean, you'll do it when you'll be ready. And I said, I want to do it in the next time we'll meet, or maybe the time after that. Like, I don't have to rush, but it's going to be okay. And I didn't know, it was just like, I won't get another chance to say it. And it feels crazy that I'm now telling the whole world how much I loved him and how much I was proud, but the only person who didn't hear that was him. And he was the only one who should have heard that. So I regret not. I guess he's listening, so Dad, I regret not calling you Dad when you were still here, and not telling you that I loved you and that I was proud of who you are. And I miss you. And now I want to turn to you guys saying I didn't get to mourn, and I didn't get to be complete and complete with his burial because my family and I were not in the position to think about it right now, because my dad is no longer here and there's nothing to do with it. I can't bring him back. And I can't bring my friends back. So many of my friends died that day, and I also think they deserve to be remembered. So almost 100 people died in Kibbutz Be'eri. They didn't die, they were murdered. I want people to know that. And I think they were all heroes. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I would like you all to remember the Chetzoroni family and the Bira family and Chen, Rinat, Alon, and Dido Even, and my dad, and Ari Kraunik, who was the first one to be murdered and the first one to save lives that day. And we need to remember all these people. Dana and Carmel Bachar. These are a few people I really wanted you to hear their names because I think they deserve to be heard. And now we want our hostages back. I did not elaborate about what happened to people, but I think we all agree, you all know, you're not going to deny it, that people were burned alive and people's body parts were cut off, and babies and elderly were beheaded and were shot. And I can tell you that there are almost no one who was murdered that day was just shot. They tortured them, and they enjoyed doing that. They invaded into our homes, made us feel unsafe in our own palace, our safe palace, our homes. They walked in and they slaughtered our families, and they enjoyed that. These are monsters. They're not even animals, because we all know that an animal kills for a purpose. An animal kills because it needs to eat or it needs to feed its children. An animal doesn't kill because it's fun. And they certainly don't torture the other animal they killed after killing it, which these monsters did. And right now, these monsters who enjoyed torturing dead bodies, who can't even feel anything, they're now the ones in charge of our loved ones. And they are there. And it's been 44 days. Can anyone imagine? 44 days. And these are our children, our parents, our cousins. And I want each and every one of you who has kids, I want you all to think about them right now. Put a picture of your kids, your beautiful kids, in your head right now. And I want everyone who doesn't know where their kids are to raise his hand up, please. Is there anyone here? You? You in the back? sorry, I couldn't hear you. Did I? He's a soldier. Thank you. You're helping me prove my point. By the way, he's a hero. May he stay safe. And does anyone else here, except for that brave woman, doesn't know where their children are? Anyone? Yes, you? Then that makes him a hero too, and you're helping me prove my point again. Yeah, let's clap for her son, and her son too. Anyone else who doesn't know where their children are? Thank you. The only ones here who don't know where their children are the ones who are parents of soldiers or kidnapped and hostages. Now, I don't know, I don't have kids, but I don't know where my cousin is, I don't know where my friends are. I know that they're in the Gaza Strip, that doesn't tell me anything. I don't know who's taking care of them, who's feeding them, who's keeping them warm. We don't know anything, and these are our children. And I hope you'll agree with me that when one person is kidnapped, the whole world, not just Israel, not just the land of that person, the whole world needs to stand up until that person is back home safely. Especially, and thank you. And I think the world needs to do that, and that happens when just some bored guy pulls his car by the side of the road and just grabs a child. And that's not even one of these monsters who enjoy doing what they're doing. And right now, it's not just some guy who wanted to annoy the police or was, like a psycho, so he just kidnapped a child. There are 30 children out of the 240 hostages, and the world needs to stand up for him. And they're not held by some bored guy who wanted to annoy the police, like I said. They are held hostage by monsters. Monsters who enjoy torturing dead people, and that says enough. Monsters who don't care about their own civilians. So, what makes us think that they care about ours? They don't care about anything except for killing Jews, and the world needs to know that. And that's why And that's why we all gotta do what Noah said before. We all gotta raise awareness about these people. Remember the ones who died, but before we mourn, we need to bring all of them back safely, because I think they deserve to mourn too. And yeah, can I say this one more thing? Oh my God, okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to add just a few words about Amit, my cousin, just so you get to know what kind of a kid he was. I think we all need to know that. Amit was a wonderful kid who liked surfing, running, doing any other kids do. He used to burn the meat when we have a barbecue, and always walk into our house with his dad and the plate of all the meat, and he'd always go like, "I'm sorry that it came out so bad because Dad overcooked it." And his dad would always go like, "Yeah, because Amit doesn't know how to make a meat." And he was, let me tell you, he was really smart in school. He got like good grades, but he was really stupid too. Because, no, he was stupid, but we love him. We love him very much. And let me embarrass him for a moment when one time our grandpa said he tried to clean the yard and he fell on his back. And Amit, let's give a moment. And no, Amit answered, "Why didn't you just fall forward?" So I told him, "Amit, that's not how it works." And Amit said, "Of course it does. If you fall backwards, just choose to fall forwards." And okay, Amit. And I just want you all to know, Amit was that guy who does the stupid things and gives us this judging look when we used to sing in dinners. And just like any other kid, he liked laughing and doing whatever other kids do. And he celebrated his 16th birthday in captivity. I don't think he even knows that he's 16. But Amit is gonna come back and get such a difficult hit when he'll find out that 3 of his closest friends are no longer with us. But Amit is still here, and so are 237 hostages. So you all heard me, you heard how desperate we are, and let me tell you, I'm personally exhausted from telling this story over and over again because it's mentally exhausting, and I didn't even want to come up here and talk today because I'm exhausted, and I can't do anything more than talking, and that's what I'm doing here. You see, I'm still positive because I know they'll come back, and that's where my job ends, with sharing the story with you. And I want you guys to take that story, and whenever someone tells you something didn't happen, you can just give me as an example, because I have names of people who went through what they went through, and these things did happen. And we won't let the people who deny it win this war. And maybe there are people who say that it didn't happen and they don't believe it happened. That's because the horrors are so horrific that the human brain can't contain them. And that's the only reason people can say it didn't happen, because they can't process the level of cruelty Hamas and Islamic Jihad people taken that day and acted that day. Thank you so much for listening. Please do something with it.
We're going to ask you all to remain standing and invite our rabbis of Southern California to come forward. We're going to have Ella stay up here as we pray our prayer for those who are taken in captivity. I want her to see all of us praying this prayer together to show her that the reason why we came tonight was for this, to bear witness, to hear her family's story, to hear Zohar's family's story, exactly what she said. So for those that deny that this happened, we heard with our ears, we saw with our eyes. You can say, I met Ella tonight, and I vow to share her story. I'll ask the rabbis who are not shy to come closer to the microphones. To help lead us in a prayer for the welfare and the return of Israel's captured and missing from among our sisters and brothers. 1, 2, God of Israel, rock and our Redeemer, God of mercy and compassion, we pray, we plead that you return these precious and beloved, the captured and the missing, who have cruelly and heartlessly been torn from their homes and carried off to our enemy's territory. We are terrified contemplating their fate and horrified at the thought of what the missing and captured are suffering right now. They lay beyond our reach and our capacity to save them. And so we plead before you, Father of mercy, be at their side, support them, protect them, and quickly bring them back to the embrace of their families and all who love them, as you have declared. Thus says the Lord, behold, I restore the captives of Jacob's tents and have mercy on their dwelling places. We beseech you, Adonai, quickly fulfill your word. Here I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. Indeed, I will not leave you until I have done what I have said to you. Amen. Please be seated. It's now our honor to call forward Assembly Member Jesse Gabriel.
Good evening, everybody. Erev Tov. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jesse Gabriel. I am privileged to chair the California Legislative Jewish Caucus and also represent the San Fernando Valley in the California State Legislature. Thank you for the one person. I recognize there are probably people in here who go to Israel more frequently than they go to the Valley, so we'd like to invite you all to join us in the Valley. I can stamp your passport when you arrive. Let me just say, first of all, thank you to the rabbis of Sinai Temple, to all of the rabbis, to the organizers, to the Federation, to our incredible Consul General. Thank you for bringing us together. I want to say a special thank you to our Interfaith allies. Your support and kinship means so much in this moment. And also particularly to our non-Jewish elected officials who are here today. And I also want to recognize my colleague Luz Rivas, who was not mentioned here. Luz and I traveled to Israel with her partner about 16 months ago, and actually went to Otef Aza and sat in Kfar Haza. And I just want to say to Luz and Senator Portantino and all of our non-Jewish allies who are here, thank you. Your support means the world to us. Because I didn't have the opportunity to see who rose their hand, can I ask everyone in this room who has family serving in the IDF or who has served in the IDF to please stand? Let's give them a gigantic round of applause. So over the last 40 plus days, I've been feeling a lot, but I have had two primary sensations that maybe some of you in this room have had. The first is unsteadiness. In many ways, it feels like the ground is shifting under my feet, and shifting under our feet, and maybe shifting under our feet faster than we could have ever imagined. And the second is of seeing history in reverse. The image that I have in my mind is actually of those old VHS tapes that are being wound back, and I feel like I'm watching history rewind itself and wake up now and experience things, and I see as if I'm seeing the world through my grandfather's eyes or through my grandmother's eyes, and understanding the experiences that they went through. And I now find myself, I was sharing this with a friend who was asking about this, that I'm now asking myself questions on a personal level and on a communal level that 2 months ago would have seemed absolutely crazy to me. Questions like, will my kids be safe? Questions like, what is our place in the United States of America? Will our community be safe? What is our place in the world? Will our people be safe? Will our one Jewish state be safe? My father, who's here, who's my best friend and a wonderful guy, is a professor at UCLA, and he's an economist, and so he likes to talk about statistics, and he once told me about this concept in statistics called reversion to the mean. It's basically a very fancy way of saying things eventually go back to where they have always been. And what I've been wondering is if we are experiencing in this moment reversion to the mean as it deals with anti-Semitism, global anti-Semitism. Because I think if we zoom out and we look at Jewish history, and my read at many centuries of Jewish history is that there's always been a fairly high baseline of anti-Semitism. And I wonder that maybe in these precious few decades after the Holocaust, when the world had the ultimate lesson about the dangers of anti-Semitism, that maybe things were a little bit better. And maybe what we are experiencing right now is reversion to the mean. That things are going back to the way that they always were. And that's a very, very scary thing for us. And part of what makes that so scary is that we see hate that is emerging on both the far left and on the far right. And I experienced this in this very strange and profound way. I was up in Sacramento on Friday and Saturday for the California Democratic Party convention, and some of you may have read about how it essentially melted down last night, was taken over by anti-Israel protesters who were shouting horrific things, justifying the October 7th attack and talking about how Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. And I had this moment last night before things got too crazy, but when the protesters were gathering with their flags and chanting outside the convention center from the river to the sea. And I was walking away from them down K Street in Sacramento to go to an event. And I bumped into a friend, someone who works in politics, coming the other direction, and she said, "Turn around." And I said, "Why?" And I could hear some drums and some other things in the background. And she said, "There's actually a group of right-wing extremists that are marching over there, and you don't want to go over there. There's nothing good that can happen over there." And I literally find myself on K Street in Sacramento, and on one side I've got the River to the Sea crew, and on the other side I've got the Jews will not replace us crew, and they're basically saying the same things about Israel and about the Jewish people. And the only thing that those two groups agree on, the only thing that those two groups agree on is that we are the problem. Somehow we are uniquely evil, and we are responsible for the world's ills. And it was this crazy moment of physically experiencing what I think many of us are feeling in this moment. And I wish I could say that I think that, God willing, this war is going to be over one day and the IDF will do what it needs to do and bring home our hostages and restore security for the people in the state of Israel. But my real take on things is that this is not a short-term phenomenon. I don't even know if we're at the end of the beginning. I think we have entered a new moment in Jewish history. But I also have incredible confidence that we're going to be okay. I believe very deeply in my heart and in my soul that we are going to be okay. And one of those reasons is because you just saw the way that Ella got up here and spoke. We are an incredibly strong and resilient people. There is no... And I think there is no better example of that to see Ella, who is exhausted, who has been telling this story over and over, to get up here and speak with such poise and such confidence and such grace and such humility and such sensitivity. And one of the things that I want to share with you, I want to share a few things that maybe I can see uniquely from my position with all of you to help you understand why I believe we're going to be okay. The first is we are not alone, and it's not just these wonderful allies of ours who've came out here on a Sunday night. It's because I have been able to see how much of our elected leadership, forget the noise that you see on Twitter, and there's a lot of it, and forget the horrific things that we're seeing on our campuses, and there's some really, really bad things happening that deserve our attention. We are so fortunate to live in a country where the overwhelming majority of our political leadership stands with us in word and in deed. We talk often among Jewish elected officials about this notion, this story of during the Holocaust when many rabbis went to Washington, D.C., and they couldn't even get a meeting with the President of the United States. It's a famous story for those who are involved in Jewish political activism. And yet we find ourselves in a moment when Israel is attacked and in grave danger, when the president, it's not that the Jewish community goes to the president goes to Israel, and the Secretary of Defense goes to Israel, and the Secretary of State goes to Israel. And that's not just true of our national leadership. Our Governor Newsom, travels to Israel. And so many of our, yes, please give him a round of applause. And so many of our colleagues have reached out to the Jewish caucus, have been there with us, have put out the most beautiful statements of support. One of the first calls I got after October 7th was from a colleague of mine, Lori Wilson, who is chair of the Black Caucus in the legislature, who said, "This is horrific. What can we do to stand with you? How can we support you?" So I know that in this moment we can feel alone, but I want you to know that we are not alone. And I also want you to know that we are an incredibly resilient people, and I think you all know that, and I think part of this resilience comes from the unity that we are going to demonstrate and the unity that we are feeling. And I heard something the other day that really stuck with me. It said, the Jews may be the smallest of nations, but we are the strongest of families. We are the strongest of families, and I think that I don't know if I'm related to Ella. Via Ashkenazi DNA, there's probably a good chance we're third cousins. But she feels like our family. And when I hear about what happened on Kibbutz Be'eri, I feel like that is my family. That is our family. And we do what families have done, we do what Jewish people have done for the last 4,000 years. When the chips are down, we come together in unity, and we roll so hard for each other. And the work that Julie Platt and Noah Farkas and the Federation have done to raise over $600 million in 40 days, that is an example of our unity. And so even as we think about this complicated moment that we're going to go through, that maybe we're not at the beginning of the end and maybe that there are tough days ahead, just remember that with our resilience and with our strength and our unity, and the Consul talked about it, we're going to get through this. And we're going to be strong. And we're going to be strong because our love for our children and our love for our traditions and our love for Judaism and our love for the people and the land of Israel is so much stronger than their hate of us. And I know that, and I know that all of you know that. And I'll close with, I've been thinking a lot about, I lived in Israel for a few years as a kid, and my favorite song as a kid was a Hanukkah song, Banu Choshech. How many of you know it? It's a great song. And there's a line in there that says, Kol echad hu or katan, vekulanu or etan. Each of us individually is a small light, but collectively we are a powerful light. And all of us here, Jews in the diaspora, and all of the Jews in Israel, together we are a powerful light. Together we are going to win. Together we are going to build a strong Jewish future. Am Yisrael Chai.
Now I'm going to call upon our student speakers representing our high school and college students, as we know it's affected all of their campuses. First is Sinai Temple Teen Center, Leah Terani from Palisades High.
Hi, my name is Leah Terani, and I'm a 17-year-old Persian Jew at Palisades Charter High School. My parents and grandparents have instilled in me a deep and profound appreciation for my Jewish heritage, Israel, and my Jewish community. When my grandparents left Iran during the Islamic Revolution, they left not only for the pursuit of a better life, but to provide their children with the gift of religious freedom. As I stand here today, their sacrifices prove to not be in vain, as I wear my Star of David and stand proudly behind the Israeli flag. As I stand here today, representing high school students from around Los Angeles and across the United States, I know that our pride and our Jewish identity will never succumb to the shadows of anti-Semitism. Instead, we will flourish by the love shared in our community. And as I stand here today, I proudly say from the bottom of my heart that I will always stand with Israel, my people, and my religion. And together we stand here today to say Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
We now call upon Tessa Wexler, President of the Associated Students at UC Santa Barbara.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for gathering here today, and to the Jewish Federation and Sinai Temple for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's so incredible to see the strength of the Jewish community, even when we are hurting so deeply. I am Tessa Wexler, a fourth-year political science and communication double major at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I am a daughter and sister of Ukrainian Jewish immigrants. I am the first Shabbat-observant student body president at one of the best public universities in the nation. But to some, I am just a Jew. Being Jewish is what has shaped my character and shown me the immense power of embracing one's identity in the face of adversity. In recent times, this core facet of my identity has been targeted more than ever before. I'm 21 years old. Do you know who else is 21 years old? Mia Shchem. Mia was kidnapped by Hamas terrorists on October 7th from the Nova Music Festival. She is still in Gaza as we wait for our brave Israeli soldiers to bring her home, along with the 240 other hostages being held by Hamas. I am a pro-Israel activist. Do you know who else is a pro-Israel activist? Paul Kessler, a Jewish man who proudly demonstrated in support of Israel until the final moments of his life on November 6th at a rally in Thousand Oaks. May his memory be a blessing. I am a Jewish college student. Do you know who else is a Jewish college student? The students at Cooper Union College in New York that were barricaded inside of a library for their own safety because anti-Israel protesters were pounding on the doors. The demands people are making of Jewish students are ones that we've heard for years as a Jewish people. Be Jewish, but not too Jewish. Support the Jewish people, but not the Jewish state. Show up for us, but we won't show up for you. You can be Jewish, but not Israeli, because that makes you responsible for an entire government's actions. All Jews are white, but Jews are not white enough to be protected from anti-Semitism. Being an Israeli should not be a death sentence, and being a Jewish college student should not be a safety hazard, and yet it is. Since high school, I've been on the front lines of Jewish and Israel advocacy. On my college campus, I have difficult conversations on a daily basis about issues concerning Israel and anti-Semitism. When my parents immigrated to the US from Ukraine in 1990, they came here with a hope that they would never be persecuted for being Jewish again. Now, they must watch their daughter facing what they once fled. I believe that living as a proud Jewish person is not only my privilege, but it is my gift and my responsibility. Since October 7th, the hate that I have received in person and online has been unlike anything I have ever experienced. Threats that I should be beaten in the streets, or that I should be stripped of my title as student body president because my Jewish identity makes me unequipped to lead. My experience is unfortunately not unique. This is what Jewish students are going through simply for being Jewish and for supporting the right of our people to mourn and protect ourselves. Let's make this clear to all of those that want to get rid of us. We will not sit idly by and watch the persecution of our people. College students who support the Jewish people in Israel will not be silenced by threats and screams for intifada. While Israel battles for its sovereignty and safety, we are fighting a different, yet no less important battle on our college campuses, and we need your help. I can only hope that the UCSB Jewish community finds comfort in knowing that they have a Jewish student body president, but not every student gets this privilege and comfort. We need to uplift Jewish student voices, fund student organizations, publish student op-eds, and condemn universities that turn their backs on their Jewish students and faculty. Fight for us, because the existence of Jewish students on American college campuses depends on it. I could have very easily kept my lips sealed, but I am here as the UCSB student body president, as a daughter of Ukrainian Jewish immigrants, and as a proud Jewish woman to say that I am afraid of the true colors that are being shown by those who have continuously claimed that their hatred for Israel is not rooted in anti-Semitism. While we mourn the deaths of innocent Israelis and Palestinians, we're also mourning the lack of humanity and sheer ignorance of the global population. But do not forget this. We are resilient. We are strong. We are proudly, unapologetically Jewish, and nobody can take that away from us. I'm Israel Chai.
Call upon Jewish Federation Board Chair, Orna Wollens.
Rabbi Guzik and Rabbi Sherman, Rabbi Farkas, Joanna, thank you for bringing us all here together tonight. It feels very nice to be unified in our love and our support of Israel and the Jewish people. All I can say is to have three women, young, beautiful, articulate, brilliant women, like Ella, like Leah, like Tessa, to stand here in front of all of you, to bare their hearts, to intelligently tell their stories, must reassure us all, must give us hope for the future, and must make us, as a Jewish mother, I will say, I am very proud that our Jewish people and the state of Israel brings us Ashes Chayil, like these young women who are truly remarkable. Ella, Leah, Tessa, you are brave, you are beautiful, and while we are united in grief, and while we are bereft together, you give us hope. So we are united in grief, and we are bereft, and we are baffled, but we probably shouldn't be, at the rising anti-Semitism in our world, and at the attacks on the existence and the legitimacy of the State of Israel. And at times like this, we are so grateful for allies and for friends. And boy, do we have the best of the best allies and friends. At this time of really dark and palpable Jew hatred, We are so grateful to two incredible allies who are here with us this evening. Pastor Dr. John Paul Foster, Senior Pastor of the Faithful Central Bible Church, and Reverend Johnny Moore, Commissioner for the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom and President of the Congress of Christian Leaders. Both Dr. John Paul Foster and Reverend Johnny Moore are friends to the Sinai Temple community, are friends to our Los Angeles Jewish Federation, are friends to World Jewry, and we are uplifted and comforted and are so appreciative of your support and your friendship. Thank you.
Good evening. I thought the microphone was working. Good evening. How are y'all doing? I've been up since 4 in the morning and preached all day. Let me try it this way. How good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters gather together in unity. Today, I don't come as an elected official. I don't come as a politician, but I do come as a friend. I come today as a friend, and I'm so honored and grateful to be here. My life was changed in 2016. I have studied theology. I have studied the Torah, the Pentateuch, the Tanakh, the Christian Bible for in academia, almost 2 decades. And my life was changed in 2016 when I had the privilege to travel to the Holy Land of Israel. When I got to Israel, I didn't need a scroll. I didn't need a book. The scriptures of what I had read about Moses and Abraham came to life when my feet touched the soil of Israel. It changed the way that I preach. It changed the way that I teach. Oftentimes we can learn things theoretically, philosophically, and theologically. But to go to the Holy Land of Israel and experience it for yourself will change any person's life. And I'm grateful for that journey. But what blessed me the most is when I returned in 2016, Rabbi Erez and Sherman, we joke about this. I think now he has a pastor and I have a rabbi. We'll be having lunch or hanging out for a moment, and someone will call us. He'll be like, "I'll call you right back. I'm with my pastor." And someone will call me, and I'll say, "Hold on a minute. You can't interrupt me. I'll call you back in about 15 minutes or so. I'm with my rabbi." And so the bond and the unity that we have grown. I remember when we first met through a mutual friend. I told him if we go through this journey, I want a friendship. And we have talked about our wives. We talked Nicole. We've talked about our children. Our kids are about the same age. And so for me, we've grown so much together that we've done community events. What's amazing is because we have tension in both of our communities. There is tension in the Black community, and there's tension in the Jewish community. And what we promised ourselves and each other is that we will find a way to bring healing to our communities. And our friendship has done just that. There have been times where Sinai has come to Los Angeles, Inglewood, California, and your boys and girls, Jewish boys and girls, have done football drills with Black boys and girls on a field together. There have been times where leaders from Sinai Temple and your community have gathered together here with leaders from my church, Faithful Central Bible Church, and we have put together kits for homeless people at UCLA. What we've tried to do is come together to bring community, to bring love, to bring healing, so that both of us together can make our communities better. And on October 7th, my heart broke. And it wasn't like you're reading a newspaper or you're listening to the news and something happened over there. Something happened to my friends. And I called Erez right away, sent him a text message, called him, and I believe he said I was I really the first person? I was the first person to reach out to Rabbi Sherman when the devastation took place. Our kids are the same age, and when I saw and heard of the devastation that happened to the Jewish people, my heart ripped. Because it happened to my friends. And for me, it continues to be emotional because, as you mentioned, Ella, where are your children? Mine are at home with my wife as I speak. When it happened, I thought, what about his family? What about your family? What about your children? What about your grandchildren? And I reached out to my rabbi to pray. We've made a commitment that as long as I'm breathing, together, we're going to fight racism and anti-Semitism. We would come, Craig, how you doing? we would come right here and have Shabbat, and the choir would sing, and I normally would share some famous quote from Martin Luther King. Well, I came prepared. Dr. King said something like this: injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we must continue to fight anti-Semitism. I hope you receive me as your friend. This is my rabbi. And I will continue to pray with him and pray with you. As Scripture says, we rejoice with those who rejoice, and we weep with those who weep. Please stand strong. I'm praying for you, and I love you. God bless.
I thought I was also your friend until you made me follow one of the pastors of one of the great churches in America. Rabbis Guzik and Sherman, the Jewish Federation, Consul General, so many elected public servants here. Ella, no one should have to be an inspiration for the reason you're an inspiration, but you inspired all of us tonight. You touched all of our hearts. We'll all remember what you said here, so thank you. The late historian James Q. Wilson once noted a study of hundreds of non-Jews who at great personal risk saved Jews during the Holocaust. The researchers concluded that meeting a threatened Jew face to face was transformative. That experience alone had a profound impact on them, so much so that they acted on their behalf, and they continued to act even when it cost them more and more. This is the power of our shared humanity. It is what happens when the divine image of God in one human being encounters the divine image of God in another. It is why a community-wide gathering like the one tonight is so critical, because we must know one another, and then we will help one another better and more. As a Christian, I've learned immensely from my Jewish neighbors. Your Jewish faith, your Jewish values, they inspire me. They've inspired me this evening. They have made me a better person, even as a Christian. I've learned that no people in history love life the way my Jewish friends love life. It is a superpower given by God to you, which is a gift to the world through you, reminding the rest of us to cherish life too. And maybe this is why it's also why the pain of your history, past and present, some of that pain caused by Christians, is so pronounced. Because only those who love life so much can feel loss so deeply. And no people in history should have to pay such a high price just to be who they are, just to exist. My dear brothers and sisters, we have read history, but now we are living it. And we are here tonight to rise to the occasion, Jew and non-Jew alike. We're here to be counted among those who will continue to speak with moral clarity about the pogrom that happened in Israel on October 7th. We are here to be counted among those who will stare down the dark demons of anti-Semitism wherever they emerge. We will not let history's oldest hate embed itself in the algorithm of our American life. We remember the words of Rabbi Sachs when he said, anti-Semitism is the first warning sign of a culture in a state of cognitive collapse. We're also here to hope for a better future. And we're here to join our forefather Moses in saying again on behalf of hundreds who are still kidnapped, let my people go, every last one of them. Someone observing our advocacy this week asked me, how long will you keep at this? Our answer is simple and it's direct. As long as it takes. If there is any conscience in the world, if there is any righteousness, any justice, if there is any morality left on this planet, then every single leader and every single citizen in the entire world, however they think about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, they should be doing everything in their power every single second of every single day to get every last hostage home now. And we don't want some of them, and we don't want just those who are dual citizens. We want all of them. Indeed, for most leaders in the world, if you can call them that, there is a deafening silence. Especially in the United Nations, which is increasingly led by white-collar anti-Semites who profess to care for human lives unless they're Jewish lives. And as their financiers and their host in the United States of America, it's time for some tough love to any international institution which harbors anti-Semites. And here's some truth. Every leader who approved financial aid which Hamas diverted to build terror tunnels or to make rockets ought to be saying, take me instead. And every elected official which treated Hamas like a legitimate political movement ought to be saying, take me instead. And every diplomat who alleges that they are negotiating through their channels with Hamas ought to be saying, take me instead. every apologist of Hamas in our universities, every television commentator who makes excuses for Hamas, every so-called social justice warrior who can't call Hamas a terrorist organization, they should be the first ones to say, "Take me instead." But we, as for us, we will say until our voices are raw, we want them back. Not tomorrow, not next week, not later today, this very second. And we also say, just so it's clear, we stand without reservation in total support of the state of Israel, and not only its right to defend itself, its duty to defend itself. And we demand no less from our political leaders, whatever their party affiliations. Israel did not start this war, but Israel must have total, unequivocal U.S. support until Israel finishes it. And finally, let me say why I came here tonight. I know you, like the state of Israel, are strong enough to stand alone, and you're willing to stand alone as anti-Semitism rages at historic levels, unprecedented levels in our modern time. But I want to assure you tonight that you will not have to. Because I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak, as my brother has also tonight, for our Christian community. We will stand in the gap. We will ascend our watchtowers, and we will act, not just speak. It's why there were thousands of us, Christians, marching on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. It's why we broadcast that march live on our Christian television networks around the world. So, on behalf of our community, amidst this rise in anti-Semitism, I'm going to say to you, here's our point of view. Not in our generation, not in our time, not on our watch. We will fight this hate with you. And when they call a day of rage, we will call a day of prayer. And when they defame you, we will publicly praise you. We will match their hate with solidarity every single day. It seems to me that the words of, I don't know what it is in the Hebrew Bible, but we call it 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 16. They seem appropriate. Don't be afraid, the prophet said. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And that may not have been true in most of history, but it is more true now than ever before. And finally, a few years ago, I felt inspired, led by God, I would say, to do something unusual. I traveled all the way to the border of Iran just for the opportunity to look over into the country to pray for those who endure the tyranny of the Islamic Republic. And I thought long and hard about what I was going to pray about when I stood across that river and stared at those Revolutionary Guard towers, and no doubt they were staring down at me too. And with all of those suffering at the hands of the Islamic Republic in my heart, I decided I didn't have words to pray, so I would just simply read Psalm 91 out loud, looking into Iran. And so I'd like to finish here tonight with some of those words. But in all of our collective mind's eyes, let us look into Gaza to pray for your loved ones who are in harm's way fighting for Israel and for all of us. And let us look down through the crusted earth of Gaza into those tunnels and pray these words for those children and those women and the elderly and the other family of our friends that have been taken hostage. The psalmist says, He will save you. He will cover you with His pinions, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and your rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. For if God is for us, who can be against us? Amen and amen.
And this is why we gather the Sunday before Thanksgiving in an interfaith gathering of gratitude. Thank you. Thank you to our interfaith allies. To help us close this evening, we call upon Rabbi Sarah Haransky, President of Board of Rabbis of Southern California. Following her closing blessing, we will have Craig Tauman and all of our Southern California cantors to help lead us in prayer. Rabbi Haransky.
My friends, Rabbi Farkas reminded us that we are walking out of the days of Shloshim. We are walking, but we are in a valley. And when you're in that valley, you need someone to hold your hand. You need someone to crawl into the valley with you and hold your hand. Together, you will find the light. You are holding our hands, and we thank you. We hold each other's hands when we do these acts of solidarity, when we decide to be of service to our brothers and our sisters throughout the land of Israel and globally. Please, if you are a doctor, can serve on a hotline, speak and listen and hear the stories and witness the trauma. If you are facing anti-Semitism, you must report it. That is holding the hand of your brother and your sister. Go to the ADL's incident report and make that report. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Continue to give your support. My friends, we have a blessing because we're on a journey. We're journeying together through this valley towards the light. We are doing it hand in hand. If you're able, I'm going to ask that you rise. If you know the person you are next to or you are comfortable, you are going to hold their hand because we are on a journey together. I pray that we are feeling a sense of renewal and bolstering from this evening solidarity gathering, from this strong place of community. As we leave tonight, I want us all to be blessed on this bumpy journey ahead. Hamakom, O source of all, please grant us wisdom to move forward while the world around us seems to be moving backwards. May our wisdom help us to navigate the tricky spaces, the gaps, the gaslighting, the hardships, and the horror. Shomer, God is our guardian, we pray that you will guard each tenuous step that we take to navigate this deep, dark valley. Guard and protect our hearts along the journey that we may have the strength to move forward as our ancestors have done time and again. God, you have lifted and steadied the hand of our ancestors during the greatest of trials and the longest of journeys, and so we ask that you grant us that same strength. Givurim of warriors, that we may too be warriors for all of your people, Israel, that we may stand up in acts of solidarity and support time and time again, that we never become too weary, never become too tired. God, Rachum v'chanun, compassionate source, please grant us abundant compassion along this journey. We need your compassion to see us through the bombardment of pain, the hate speech, the hate acts, the turning of the backs of our friends and our neighbors. Lend us compassion that our hearts not become jaded, and rather that they be invigorated giving us the compassion to bring healing into the world around us, to spread increasing light in the days ahead. Yedid Nefesh, beloved one, we ask that you bring your light to our world, to spread a shelter of peace over us, and let it be a source for ever-increasing light in our world. The darkness that spread over Israel, over all nations, is far too abundant, and let it be that we remain an or, a light to all, through our actions, through our words, through our prayers. Yeh ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'ahavatenu v'imotenu, shetolechenu l'shalom, v'tatzienu l'shalom, v'tadrichenu l'shalom, v'tismichenu l'shalom, v'tagienu limchoz cheftzenu l'chaim u'lusimcha u'lushalom. May it be your will, our God and God of our ancestors, that you lead us toward peace, guide our footsteps towards peace, and make us reach our desired destination for life with gladness and with wholeness. Amen.
We want to thank everyone for coming this evening. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Am Yisrael Chai, may the people in the land of Israel endure forever and ever. Amen.